So someone told me about this Vlad, Tony Yayo interview where they're talking about ownership, owning a home versus renting an apartment. And the person who told me about it sent me the link. I'm going to watch it now and give you guys my opinion on what I think about the conversation.
It doesn't always make sense to buy. Sometimes renting actually makes a lot more sense. I spent years renting until I was ready to buy. When I bought big. But I spent years renting because it made more sense at that time. And a lot of times renting is actually cheaper than buying with a mortgage because you're not responsible for any of the repairs, upkeep, whatever else. So based on your current situation, there are times where it makes way more sense to rent. You don't always have to buy. Because sometimes people buy and when they sell, they lose money. Let's not forget that part.
I understand what you're saying, but when you rent, you don't have no equity and there's no money saved.
Right, that's true. Now, but in my case, I was renting.
That's all. There's no money saved. Listen, Vlad. So if you're renting, look, you're renting and you're spending fucking 92, 100,000 a year, right? What the fuck are you getting out of that? Living prestigious? And I rented before. I lived in Battery Park, brother. The rent, me and Banks, listen, me and Banks rent. Look, me and Banks rent in Battery Park for a 3-bedroom. In 05, 06 was about $8,000, maybe $9,000 a month. It was a fucking waste of money.
Excellent point. I want to just touch on this that Yayo said, but this is a major talking point from a lot of people who try to convince you that it's cheaper to rent and, oh, you don't want to buy a house because it's going to get expensive. You got to do all the repairs yourself. Well, let's use the example he just gave of $8,000 a month. That's $96,000 a year in rent, right? That $96,000 could have been a down payment on a house for whoever Yayo was renting with. And he's smart enough to realize that it was a total waste of money, right? They could have used that, just 1 year of rent could have been the down payment on a I don't know how many people he was renting with, but maybe a 3-bedroom house, and they would have been contributing towards building equity in something that they owned.
How much was the rent range?
Oh my God! There was times I was spending $15,000 a month in rent.
$15,000 a month?
$15,000 a month
and you
for
think
a whole house.
And you felt like that was smart?
I made way more money.
You think that was, if you tell me you think that was smart?
At the time, it was absolutely smart.
Well,
absolutely.
To me, that's dumb.
Because if I, hold on. Because if I had actually gotten a mortgage, if I had let's just say the house was $5 million, right? I bought a $5 million house at the time when I couldn't just pay off a whole house. I would have to put 20% down, which is
but we're not talking about buying a house.
Hold on. Let me
$5 million.
You put $1 million down, and then you're paying a mortgage that's probably going to be more than $15,000. And you got to pay for the roof getting fixed and everything else like that. Instead, I put nothing down, spent my $15,000 a month, and took that $1 million and turned it into multiple millions by investing in the stock market. You see what I'm saying?
Cap.
Jesus Christ, he just said so many things right there that was just, it's a complete fallacy. All right, so now let's start with the fact that he's assuming everyone can afford or buy a $5 million house. Let's use him as the example. He's going to buy a $5 million house. His argument for not buying that $5 million house is that he needs to put 20% down. You don't need 20% down to buy a house. The whole $1 million argument, I saved money because I didn't have to put $1 million down, which is 20% of 5 million, and I put that money in the stock market and made millions. Where did you put $1 million in the stock market and it magically multiplied into more millions, right? The average stock market return is anywhere between 10 and 12% year over year. So if you're putting $1 million in the stock market, you're lucky you may get $120,000 return on your investment each year. And let's say that compounds over a few years. It would take you minimum 3, 4, 5 years, somewhere around there, to double your $1 million investment. So that's an exaggeration right there. Next, let's talk about the amount of money he's paying in rent, which is $15,000 per month. That's $180,000 per year. Bullshit. The percentage of people who can execute this properly, where it actually makes more sense to rent, meaning you take the money that you would have used for a down payment on a house and invested in the stock market to earn the equivalent of what you would make from buying a house. Not very many people have the discipline, the knowledge, and just the overall grit to do that. Most Americans can't and won't do that, right? And that's why we always encourage people to buy a house versus trying to figure out, okay, where do I invest? How much do I invest?
All right, that 15,000 times 12, what you was paying a year? Quick, if you're smart.
15 times 12 is 180,000 a year.
So you mean to tell me you would pay 180,000 a year renting is the dumbest? You would be the dumbest motherfucker on the planet. When I can go get a house for maybe 300,000-400,000.
You're not getting a house like that I was renting for 15,000.
I can go to Pennsylvania.
That was like a $4 million house I was renting.
I can go to Pennsylvania and get a house for 400,000. That's plush.
Sure. You're not going to go to Calabasas or Beverly Hills for no 300,000 or 400,000.
Look, I can go to Florida and get a house for 400,000.
Not in Miami. You're going to be out in the sticks somewhere.
I don't have to be in Miami. I could be somewhere else. I'll be somewhere nice, Palm Beach somewhere. I'll be somewhere nice. I could spend 400,000 in Florida and get a nice piece of property. And you mean to tell me you would spend 180,000 a year to rent? Yeah. That's not smart. That's why these rappers are fucking up.
It's absolutely smart, because I'm not living in fucking, bumfuck Florida somewhere. I'm actually living in a central area where I'm making millions of dollars.
You can live somewhere nice in Florida for a house for 400,000.
I'm sorry?
You can live somewhere nice in Florida for a house for 400,000.
Yeah, and you're way the fuck out in Florida, and there's no business to be made. I can't do my job. There's no artists or celebrities that I can do interviews with. I'm in fucking Florida in a $400,000 house in the middle of nowhere.
You said you pay $15,000 rent a month. It felt like that was smarter. You got money.
Absolutely.
You got serious money to be like
absolutely.
You just different, bro. You just different.
And I love Yayo is ribbing him here, say, oh, you got money or whatever. And Yayo has money too. But the point he's making here is it doesn't matter. Stupid is stupid no matter what level you're on, right? No matter if you're making $50,000 a year or you're making $50 million per year, right? The fact that you would think it makes sense to spend that type of money, and I get his argument, right? He doesn't feel like he can attract the type of celebrities and do his business, basically do his business in a house for $400,000. And to be fair, he may not be able to get a house for $400,000 that would suffice for all his business needs and the people he needs to accommodate. However, a house for $800,000, right? A house for $600,000. I'm going to put some houses on the screen. I don't know when this interview was done. I think this interview was done maybe a year ago or something like that. I'm going to show you some homes in Fort Lauderdale, in Miami, in West Palm Beach, centrally located next to the Miami International Airport, the Fort Lauderdale Airport, the West Palm Beach Airport. I'm going to pull some homes from the MLS. I'm showing them on the screen right now so you can see the type of homes that you can get for less than $1 million. He went all the way up to $5 million, and I'm showing you homes for a fraction of that.
I'm just different. What I'm saying is the money that I wasn't spending on down payments and so forth, I invested it in the stock market. Now, do I say you should rent for $15,000 and have no money left over and that's all you got? No.
Yeah, for the average Joe, that would be stupid to
that. But I'm not the average Joe. I was actually making millions.
I'm not the average Joe
either,
but I still wouldn't spend $15,000. Certain things I wouldn't do. Like, to me, I like a Bugatti, but a two-door, you spend $5 million on a two-door. That's just not not my thing. I'm just not a spender like that.
Yeah.
$5-6 million on a two-door vehicle. I'd rather have a fleet on that $5 million. I'd rather have G-Wagon, maybe 4 or 5 vehicles.
Sure, but that's because you and I are broke compared to people who could buy Bugattis.
I'm blessed.
That's why I was talking like that.
I wouldn't say I'm broke. I'm blessed. I'm good.
You and I are...
Thank you. You've got millions of dollars and you're calling yourself broke. Why are you comparing yourself to other people? This is a teachable moment here. Here's a guy who, by any standard, if he was making millions of dollars, is in the top 1% of Americans. And he's calling himself broke. And you hear Tony Yayo checking him there saying, hey man, I'm all right. I'm doing good. I don't need to compare myself to other people. Let that man making $100 million a month go buy his Bugatti. What I got is good. I'm happy for what I have, and I'm gonna spend it wisely versus trying to put on some kind of show or front and keep up with the Joneses.
Broke compared to Bugatti buyers. Okay,
when I hang with my friends, like when I hang with my lawyer and he takes me to the Hamptons, Bob Macedonian, and he's like, yeah, man, this guy's kitchen is $1 million. It could be in magazines. Yeah, I feel broke, but I feel blessed. I'm good with what I got. See, that's the difference with Yayo. I never worry about what other motherfuckers got. Yayo worry about what he got, and he's good with what he got. I'm content, because every day you wake up is a fucking blessing, thank God. That's what, every day you wake up, that's a blessing. I told my friends and people that work with me that, like, yo, look at, we in the Swiss Alps. There's people that will never be here. We're 10,000 feet, elevated in air, eating fucking bison and mashed potatoes. I mean, at a Michelin star restaurant, which is past 5-star. And then we go later on, there's another Michelin restaurant, shout to the Shetty Hotel if you're ever in the Swiss Alps. A lot of you bum ass people will never go. A lot of people you would go, but it's a good place to go. All the haters, y'all not gonna go. All the good people, you're gonna go. But then we ate, this is my first time eating salmon trout. I don't even think they have that US. I asked them, I was like, do they even have salmon trout in the US? It's like a crossbreed fish. Because, you know, believe it or not, overseas, more healthier. You go to Burger King and have vegan mayonnaise only. There's no salt. You go to KFC, the chicken doesn't, it feels like the chicken is baked. I don't even think they fry it. They don't have just chicken laying around. You got a batch. Everything is more healthy. There's no coffee creamer. There's no Lucky Charms.
Hey, shout out to Don for sending me the link to this video, man. It was really, really good to see these brothers talking about real estate in such a knowledgeable and profound way. I'm gonna spend my money in a way that makes sense, right? I don't need to compare myself or try to keep up with the Joneses, right? Spend your money wisely, own your real estate, do not rent it. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think of this video. Comment below, like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.